Hello everyone and welcome back to Omsi 2. Today we are doing a comprehensive overview of the studio Polygon Renown. This post was released on their own website last Sunday. So what I want to do in this video is I want to give a comprehensive overview of the bus. And essentially it bogs down to product good, selling strategy not so good. That includes the price, the marketing and everything else. So first of all, I think I'm in the wrong stand, so let me drive off. So now, I know I talked about this in the live stream, but I want to do a separate review video for this. Also, I know I mentioned it in the Omsi 2 news, but again, just want to do a separate review for this. So basically, the Studio Polygon Renown is available exclusively on their own website for a price of £18. Now, what this means is that the only place you can get the Studio Polygon Renown is on their own website. The meaning of this means that you can only buy it in pounds. So the first thing that this means is that users outside of the UK, now we must acknowledge that the majority of their user base are in the UK, so that is acknowledged. But for users outside the UK, they bear all the exchange rate fee. Unlike with Steam, where they have a fixed exchange rate in the sense that, you know, generally actually tends to be quite good because it tends to be below what the actual exchange rate is. So it actually works out cheaper sometimes to buy in domestic currency. Although, again, that becomes an issue when, for example, the dollar is now on parity with euro. So actually, it works out more expensive when you're buying it with dollars because the dollar used to be more expensive because it used to be less valuable than the euro. But again, when it appreciates in value, presumably most of the people who have dollar, who are in the dollar currency, end up with higher purchasing power. Anyway, regressing from that point, it basically means that first of all, that again they've only really concern themselves with themselves because now you can only buy it in pounds, which does work out as more costly if you're outside of the pound, if you don't use pounds, if you're in a different country. And also, I do acknowledge at the moment that the pound is at the lowest it has been in 40 years, so now probably works out cheaper, €20.50 something. But again, if the pound appreciates, it will work out as more expensive. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing about this is that we need to acknowledge who the main beneficiary of this is. People have tried to insinuate, especially YouTubers have tried to insinuate that there are benefits to this being on their website. Now, what I'm going to say is that really isn't the case. And the reason we're going to see this is because actually, why is this bus not moving? I'm just going to have to fast forward time because Omsi 2 is a bit thick. But yeah, the reason this is not the case is because the argument now. Okay, first of all, we need to acknowledge that look, Studio Polygon has been very smart in what they've done. They have given the early access and basically, I don't want to say they've made the biggest Omsi 2 YouTubers out there part of their ecosystem. I'm going to let you folks make your own judgment calls, but all I'm going to say is that, you know, generally, if you the thing is, because Studio Polygon is a small studio, and obviously they're actually watching. Because a small studio, one, it means actually watching assuming the videos of people who are making the early access, or they have a Discord where people will be able to tell them what people have said. They actually know what people who they're giving keys to are saying about their product. This is less of an issue with bigger studios because the bigger studios will tend to not have the time to watch the videos of smaller subscribers, let alone actually of smaller YouTube channels to give keys to, let's say, a couple of thousand subscribers, let alone actually have the time to, you know, engage with that. So what that means is that because you know, Studio Polygon is essentially watching what these people are saying, there is a tendency there to them to have to tone down what they're saying, whether this is, you know, a subconscious level or a conscious level. Again, that might be a different thing, but again, if these YouTubers, which some people who have seemed to insinuate is their concern, is views, and look, I'll let you make that judgment call, but all I'm saying is that realistically on a psychological level, they know they're being watched. If they want to continue to be in that ecosystem, they have to mind what they're saying, which basically means that they will downplay or, you know, essentially not really engage with the whole selling strategy, because again, doing so would probably not be particularly something that Studio Polygon would want them to do, because obviously what they want them to do is showcase the product in a good way in order to maximize sales. So that's probably one of the reasons why these people will tend to downplay the whole selling strategy. I think that's just I think that's fair. I don't think that's being harsh. I'm not trying to attack anyone here. I'm just trying to, you know, on a more general level, just illustrate why that's the case. And look, whether you believe that or not, that's completely up to you. But that's just the point I'm making there. So what this means then is that, look, while they may argue, and I'm going to now dismantle this whole argument about this is actually better for the consumer because of the benefits. The benefits they list, and some of them I will grant them because we're going to be fair. Some of them I'm going to say are complete nonsense and it's just, a facade. But the main benefits they're talking about is that, I don't have to engage with Steam. So this way they can release the updates quicker to you folks. And this is better for the consumer. Two things about this. The first thing about this is that, first of all, this assumes that the Omsi community is extremely impatient and that something being released 2 days earlier is of utmost importance to them. And yes, there are very impatient people within the Omsi community, but that is not reflective of everyone, especially considering that usually children just tend to be more impatient than people that are older, because obviously as you grow older, patience is something that you have to learn. It's a life skill. And usually these people, kids are not usually people who can purchase stuff, because again they have less of a disposable income, so I'm not necessarily sure they're the entire market. Okay, fine, that's probably not the strongest point, but anyway, the second point is that actually their launcher isn't that much more user friendly. When I say user friendly, I mean, okay, on Steam, if there's an update released, Steam automatically installs it for me. I don't have to do anything as long as I've set that up. I think that's the default setting. Steam does the installment. I don't have to do anything. My life made easier. This is not the case with the Studio Polygon installer. With the Studio Polygon installer, every time there's an update, I have to know that there's an update, so I don't know if the installer tells you, but usually you have to follow their Discord, you have to follow the social medias, which again is a way for them to increase their following, again, their own motives, larger market that they can, sell the products to, or at least advertise the products to, but you have to basically know when the update is, because the update's not automatic. With the launcher, you have to uninstall everything and then download a new launcher just so you can access the new update. This is not user friendly because this means it's costing you time. Before, if this was on Steam, it cost me nothing. It just gets updated. I don't have to do anything. With this, I have to go out of my way. I have to remember my serial key, because you have to remember your serial key in order to actually access your in order to access the updates. This means you have to find that email and keep that email safe. Again, this just creates nuisance because, again, we all know, especially if you receive numerous emails, these things get lost. Yes, you can bookmark it, but again, it creates hassle for the consumer. So when we say this benefits the consumer, that is disingenuine, completely disingenuine at the highest level. And I just, it's really disingenuine, I think. I don't think that's the case. It benefits Studio Polygon because it maximizes the revenue. It does not benefit the consumer because now it makes life a lot more difficult. Every time there's an update, there's a lot more steps and barriers you have to implement. Now, the other thing is, because also, it's not very clear to me, because, okay, I'm going to have to kind of intertwine 2 points here because they're somewhat related, but basically, Studio Polygon, or as I like to say, Studio Paranoid, because they're very paranoid about people redistributing the product. Look, it's fair enough to have some sort of concerns about, people redistributing your product without their, again, obviously, they've worked hard on this, they shouldn't have the product redistributed, and piracy shouldn't be something that's happening. But I think the issue is that what they have done is they haven't actually reduced the likelihood of that happening, because one thing we need to acknowledge is if someone wants to redistribute these files, or someone wants to pirate these files, they are not going to be hindered by a bunch of pop-ups. And these pop-ups are annoying because it is a bit insulting as a consumer, because you've paid £18 for something, and then at every stage on the installer it tells you your agreement is just an anti-piracy agreement, anti-distribution of intellectual property, of gaming content, which is technically intellectual property. But yeah, basically you get all these pop-ups about you don't distribute the product, piracy, all this, and it's just a bit insulting because it's annoying. You've paid for them, and then they're trying to imply, oh yes, you might be stealing this. I'm like, we just paid for the product. Why would we be doing that? It makes no sense. But anyway, that's probably not a very relevant argument. I will admit that. But anyway, I think it's a bit annoying to the consumer because realistically, someone that wants to do that is not going to care what a pop-up says. Especially if the pop-up is essentially an empty thread and isn't really something that they have any way of backing up. Because again, the cyber world, especially depending on the jurisdiction people are in, I don't think there's much that can be done in certain instances. So this whole thing, it doesn't do anything. But what it does mean is, because this now Studio Polygon puts this thing, and apparently they track you. But the issue is, because they're so paranoid about piracy, they've actually removed and basically made the product more of a hassle for the consumer, and they've passed on all of this, all of these things on what they've done is they've passed on all of these intrusive measures and all of these nuisances onto the consumer, just because they're so paranoid about the product being redistributed. But I guess one of their, if you've been VAC banned before, a VAC ban is basically an anti-cheat system, but which one of their developers may or may not have been, then again, they probably, I don't know, look, that's probably not a very relevant point, to ignore that. But look, the point is there that, again, The point there is that because they are now being so... yeah, so the point is, because now what they've done is they've implemented all these features, you get only 3 activation limits. So you're not only now paying more for a product than it was have been on Steam, because the DLCs on Steam are £13.50, the Studio Polygon are known as £18. Now you also have only 3 activation limits. What this means is that, well, now it's unclear to me, because whenever there's a new update, and whenever you uninstall and install a new installer, it asks you for your serial key, but is that using up another one of your activations? What this also means is that if you mess up and you have to uninstall it and reinstall it, then you have to use another one of your activation keys. Actually seen that happen to someone use up 2 of their activation keys just trying to get the thing installed. Because people say this new installer is more user friendly, it's not. People say it's as simple as doing this and that, it's not. It's not as simple as Steam, and anyone that's saying it's as simple as Steam is flat out lying to you. I don't want to say that they're flat out lying to you, but they are essentially flat out lying to you, because it's not truthful. Because on Steam, there's a lot less of this hassle. You don't have to contact them, you know, because it's linked to your account, so, you know, you have ownership. With this, you don't really technically have ownership, because one, you're only allowed to use it for, essentially just renting this. Well, okay, you technically have ownership, but you have to actually contact them if you use up your registration keys, and you also have only allowed to own it on one PC. And also talk about the data privacy issues, because first of all, in order to ensure their anti-privacy measures, they keep track of your address. They keep your address, name, and last 4 digits of your card number on record. This is, again, they say this is in order to ensure anti-privacy, but again, this is not necessary. This is so they can verify the product. All they need to verify your product is your email address, because your email address is linked to what you bought. They don't need to keep all that additional information, but they do. Again, this shows that they have no real regard for your privacy, because they're keeping all of this information when they really shouldn't be keeping all of this information. And this is another reason why people are, I particularly, I say others I know are as well, uncomfortable with using their website, because again, it's keeping track of information that they don't need to keep track of, because again, they have sacrificed the consumer in order to what they think increases their privacy protection, when I say it doesn't. Because again, if people want to do that, and people who have the know how to do that are not going to be deterred by this. Because again, someone made this ridiculous argument that oh yeah, they can now have privacy protection. You can have privacy protection on Steam. Put it this way, Steam is one of the biggest distributors out there. Steam would be losing a lot of money if they didn't have privacy protection. So that whole argument about privacy protection is, you know, that there's no privacy protection on Steam is ludicrous. In fact, Steam would be much better at protecting products than some, I don't want to say random studio, but some, you know, much smaller studio. So there's that point there about that. So again, they're keeping track of your personal information. If you read the terms and conditions, that's exactly what it says. I'm not making this up. It's in the terms and conditions, which I actually read on their website. Now, the other issue is, yeah, also the installer is not user-friendly, because the other issue with the installer is, as I said, if you mess up, because first of all, the installer, okay, I think the one tells you to put it in the Omsi directory. The repaint installer doesn't tell you where to install it. So I thought you install it into the Renown folder, because presumably you just put it in the repaints, but no, it turns out you install it into the Omsi 2 folder. So then you end up wondering why your repaints aren't showing up. You have to look into the Omsi 2 folder to find where the epoxy repaints are. So this new installer is not user friendly. With Steam, it installs automatically. I don't have to do anything. Here I have to know which directory I'm putting it into, and I know it seems intuitive, but it's not only it is intuitive only sometimes, because some developers have different ways of patching files. Sometimes they put it into vehicles folder, sometimes they put it Studio Polygon Renown, and depending where they put it, you have to put it in a different file path. If you don't put it in the right file path, it will not show up. And for some reason, Studio Polygon also assumes that the default Omsi 2 folder is in My Documents. Studio Polygon, come on, you know this. Omsi 2 folder is never in My Documents. But then this ends up, if you're doing this, you have to uninstall it and use up one of your keys, because why would you think that the Omsi 2 folder would be in your documents? Again, this basically means that it's not user friendly. So what this means is essentially that this means that yes, I acknowledge that this new method is this new Studio Polygon selling only on the website is convenient for Studio Polygon. That's what it's convenient for. It's not convenient for the customer. In fact, the customer has been sacrificed for the benefit of Studio Polygon. And now I'm just going to say the Studio Polygon have made about £50,000 from this. So I'm not going to be overly sympathetic, because look, they've made their money, which is fair enough. Look, they deserve to be compensated. But I think considering that this is a very niche game, and this is, you know, they sell a bus model, they made more than enough points. So I don't feel in any way, you know, for calling out their sales policy for what it is, a money-orientated policy that has little regard for what the customer needs or wants. Because, and this is what annoys me, because, you know, there's YouTubers out there that try to say, and there's also Studio Polygon, they're trying to say that actually this new launcher has benefits. I've just illustrated to you how no, it's not more user friendly than Steam. okay, sure, they can release stuff earlier, but again, it actually means you have to do more work, so it's actually more hassle. Especially a lot of us have other things. We have lives outside of you know, YouTube and Omsi too. Like Omsi do something I engage with very little. But basically, anytime now there's an update, I have to spend 20 minutes to just get the bloody thing running, compared with Steam, where it was just automatic in the background. Yes, you had to install the branding patch, but that was relatively straightforward, and it was not something that was compulsory. So no, this is not more user-friendly. So yes, there's a time element, sure, that's a minor advantage. That's not something I care about. I think that's also not something that a lot of people care about, because a lot of people have patience. That's not going to make a huge difference to them in the grand scheme of things if something's released 1 or 2 days earlier. Second of all, also I think that's really the only benefit of it being on the Studio Polygon website. And does that outweigh the fact that now it's, you know, more intrusive on your privacy? They've limited the amount of times you can activate the product. They've also basically made you have to do more work in order to use the product. No, this does not benefit the customer in any way. And I'm sorry, anyone that implies that is flat out lying. I don't say they're flat out lying, but they're being disingenuous at least. I think at least they're being disingenuous. Maybe this sounds harsh, but I just don't think that's a fair comparison. And I think when you actually look at the case and you look at this objectively, I don't think that is true. So what this means is that the whole selling strategy of Studio Polygon, unfortunately, is all money oriented and doesn't have the customer in mind. And look, that is understandable, because at the end of the day, they don't really have to have the customer in mind. And why don't they have to have the customer in mind? The reason is because, first of all, there are a lot of people who are staunch advocates of Studio Polygon and are just willing to say, oh yeah, congratulations to them. And also, considering the fact that they had a bad reputation at the start, they managed to turn that around. I think it's clear that, you know, they managed to kind of come out of that. So again, that shows they're, you know, I guess in a way able to dodge bad publicity. But look, that point aside, I think it's also important to acknowledge that there has been history about stuff that they've done in the past. But anyway, but the other thing is that also it just means, because there's people who are always willing to buy this product, and also there's YouTubers who are willing to downplay the selling strategy in order to get early access. Look, I know this sounds generous, but I think that's I think there is at least some element of truth to that. It basically means that they don't really have to be too concerned with the fact that this hurts the consumer, because people will buy it anyway. So the customer is not a focus. But at least let's be honest about that, and let's acknowledge that because a lot of people have seen this. Well, it's a money-making system, and it is. So let's at least be honest about this. Let's not try to paint this whatever it is. I know Studio Polygon has tried to say that there's benefits. Folks, that's a facade, and I think you know it, I know it. That's not the real deal. The real deal here is money. And I think the major issue is, look, fine, they're allowed to do whatever they want. And sure, even if they had like at least kept the price the same as on Steam, it'd be like, okay, fair enough, you know. Obviously, Steam takes a lot of money, and a lot of times they tend to have a monopoly power, and obviously developers work hard on the product, and they should be getting more than like 50%. When a lot of times these studios only just like hosting stuff like Steam, and then, you know, sometimes I don't know how much advertising Aerosoft does, because a lot of times these UK developers also do their own advertising. But again, look, they still be making 50% more, and you know, people saying they make 30%, maybe it's 50%, but let's say it's 50%. They still be making £6.50 on top of what they were making beforehand. Now, also, just to digress quickly, the way I know they make 50,000 is they show you the order numbers based. So if you just ask people what order number they are, someone in your badge, you'll see what how many orders Studio Polygon has, and that way you can calculate how much money they've had. It's simple maths. You just multiply 18 by that. And now moving back onto the okay, so they still moving back onto the other point. Okay, they still make 13 pounds. They still make 13 pounds. You know, they still make £6.50 on top of that. Or yeah, £6.50. Okay, it's a bit more, £6.75 because it's £13.50. So they still be making more money than we're making beforehand. But they decided to increase the price by £4.50. And this again outlines the monetary element. Because you have to look at these things in a whole. And you look at the fact that they're extremely concerned about privacy, that they're limiting the amount of times you can use their product with this whole registration key. That they... Oh, this is the wrong place. And also, when you see the fact that they are, you know, increasing the price, then it's quite blatant that the main priority of them is money. So, unfortunately, this has all been done at the cost of the consumer, and the customer hasn't been placed in mind. And I think I've illustrated to you that there is a very little benefit to the customer, apart from perhaps the marginal benefits of it being released earlier, which, to be honest, is not a sufficient reward for basically all the negative drawbacks that we've mentioned. So, that is my take on that, and I'm very unhappy with this. And I know technically I've supported this by getting this product, but I did want to provide a view. But I'm, for one, I'm not going to be staunchly advocating for this, and I think at least someone has to offer a counterbalance to this, and at least provide an in-depth analysis to the whole model. In terms of the bus itself is quite good. I'm gonna say this fair play, at least whilst they are very obviously focused on sales, and look, people can give various justifications for that. Look, I do acknowledge that again, this is they need to make money from this. I've told you how much money they made from this, so I think it's, considering how niche of a market, I think they've done quite well for themselves. And that has been at the cost of the consumer, but basically the bus, they haven't lost track of quality, and at least they have provided a quality product. They may have not sold it in the right manner, marketed in the right manner, but at least the product quality itself is quite good. The sounds are actually much better. The sounds of the Streetlight weren't great. The sounds on the 4-inch MC were better, but on this, at least the phone with the 4-inch MC, they looped too much, so it's kind of obvious what's the loop. But this, actually, they are quite good. So look, credit where credit is due. The bus is quite impressive. Now the other thing is that, again, it is quite expensive for a bus pack, and I know it features many different variants, but they're all very, very much the same. Someone try to say that they're different and it's essentially two different bus packs. That's complete nonsense. There's 3 engine variants. Most of the dashboard looks the same, so it's not many tweaks they have to do, and it's not like completely different bus packs like the case with like other bus packs like the Neoman Overhaul or some of the Helicon bus packs, like various different buses. So let's at least be honest about that. But yeah, it does have different variants, and at least they're trying to recreate every variant. Again, whether this is something every customer wants, I don't know. But look, you know, the bus itself is quite good, so I will give them credit for that. The modeling is top notch. The only problem is that it is so detailed that maps like Farmington, the bus cannot run whatsoever. I was going to post that video, but to be honest, I was pointed out to me that Farmington apparently has really poor performance, which I kind of thought about but didn't really know about. So look, that's fair enough. I thought I was going to keep them on the bus. So, folks, that is that. So, you know, hopefully I've provided something. I'm not trying to be negative or try to insinuate stuff about other YouTubers. I'm just trying to provide an honest overview, and that does involve an honest analysis. And the honest analysis obviously involves analyzing the mechanisms through which this whole model works. And the whole model works essentially, again, as explained, you know, they provide keys to the bigger YouTubers. The bigger YouTubers, therefore, if they want to maintain the ecosystem within Studio Polygon, have to pander to Studio Polygon. I think that's a fairly, you know, I think that's a fairly obvious thing. I don't think that's something like, you know, I don't think, you know, I'm not trying to say anything bad about anyone, but I'm just trying to point out that's the way it works in the more general terms across the board. And also, you know, I know this perhaps has been overly negative, but I'm trying to offer counter view, because I'm trying to counterbalance and at least offer some insight and actually be someone that actually speaks to this, because I feel a lot of people are just being very staunch supporters of this, which is fair enough. People have their own opinion. I think it's important to have someone that proposes the counter view, which is what I have done for you in this video. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I'm always open to other people's opinions, and obviously having some sort of discussion. You know, people have said obviously that they deserve more money, and I agree with this. But for me, the main issue was the fact that they've increased the price, even though they're now taking 100% of the revenue compared to less than 50% beforehand, or 50% beforehand. So when you increase the price in light of that, and you look at all the other stuff they've done that, again, weeks of money-orientated goals, like the, you know, limiting the activation limits. And the other problem with limiting the activation limits is if you want to actually use their product, if you want to actually, you know, get your activation limits renewed, you have to email them, and they endeavor to respond within 7 days. Considering you've paid for something, and you have to wait 7 days to actually be able to use it again, that's not acceptable. It really isn't. Now, obviously, they say that just to cover themselves, but again, that's the case. See, and that's one of the benefits of having someone like Steam or Eversoft. You're outsourcing, because yes, now Studio Polygon, they have taken the role on this, they have to deal with now with customer support. But again, that is the cost if you want to keep all the revenue. At the end of the day, there is a reason these companies take a certain share of the money. And then the other point also is that also the launcher, even Microsoft Edge doesn't trust it, and it's actually you get a prompt by Windows Defender that it is unsafe. Again, just raises some eyebrows. Again, this, you know, this sometimes happens with various default things, but this is a payware add-on. Really shouldn't be giving those sort of pop-ups. It raises eyebrows. But folks, that's that. That is the Renown. I won't labor on more about this point. That's really it. You know, I'll stop talking about the price that much. We're done. Bye for now.